Hello everyone and welcome to the special edition. I'm covering the conjunction of Mars, Uranus, and the North Node happening August 1st. I'm also going to blend in some themes from the Leo new moon. Before I start though, really exciting news. I just launched my first ever astrology course. This is going to cover all the fundamentals of astrology, the planets, the signs, the houses, components of the birth chart, and how to interpret the birth chart. So please check that out. The link is down below in my Instagram bio and in my TikTok bio. And I'll have more content to kind of spell that out in future videos. So let's talk about this conjunction. It's a rarity to have all three of these sort of planetary bodies and aspects conjuncting at the same time. Mars and Uranus conjunct every 2 years or so, but now we have the North Node involved. And whenever the lunar nodes are involved, there is a fatedness to it and kind of a pivot or inflection point when we kind of switch towards a new path. So there's a lot of powerful energies here. And it's really highlighting the energy of Uranus because all of the other outer planets and even the social planets will be retrograde at this time. And so what does Uranus stand for? We have to figure that out as we're activating this energy. When I think about Uranus, I really think about words that start with the prefix un. It's unpredictable. It's unthinkable. It's unforeseen. You know, because Uranus is a sort of reaction in terms of like disassembling order. It's responding to order. It's almost like we need a structure. We need something predictable in place for Uranus to disrupt it, because Uranus can also be the energy of disruption and of chaos. And so this kind of in the lead up to this conjunction, the entire week from July 25th at the time of this filming all the way through August 1st, there are going to be a lot of unforeseen events. It's going to feel like we're kind of at warp speed. We're almost jumping into a new timeline. And that's because the pace of changes is quickening. And so hopefully, through this video, you can better navigate that because I do have some tips for you there. But the vast majority of people who aren't watching this video, who don't follow astrology, are just going to simply say, well, you know what, this is just a strange week. Let's just chalk it up to chance. It's randomness. And Uranus does create randomness, but through astrology, you can actually kind of, again, foresee a little bit of this and prepare ahead of time. So with Mars and Uranus, let's talk about that. This is really a mobilization of the collective. This is actually about people waking up to what needs to change in their surroundings. So it's like as the pace of change is accelerating, the people are realizing, okay, if these systems were more sturdy, stable, and reliable, we probably wouldn't be in this position in the first place. So there's kind of a reaction here to stagnation in a sense that things are unraveling. And if you actually just break down what's happening on the ground right now, this morning, I saw a ton of tweets about, are we in a recession already in the US? Are we not? And then the administration is kind of playing semantics and saying, well, a recession, like even if it is, in a traditional sense, it's not actually in like a modern sense. So things are getting pretty weird already. And with Neptune and Pisces, we kind of know, we already know that like the truth of like what's happening is coming from so many different sides that it's impossible to really discern what's actually going on. But, You have eyes, you can see what's happening in your community. You can see the inflation rate, you can see the gas prices, you can see, you hear stories from your friends about like, maybe they're not saving as much anymore. The savings rate is just dropped. Maybe their credit card debt is really high. So it's like we all have the capacity to like really add these things up and realize, okay, even if there were like some thin illusions remaining about stability, the air of stability in our society, it's kind of starting to vanish. It's almost like out of sight. So right now, in sort of a Uranian sense, it's like we've left one island, but we're not quite to the other one yet. So if you really think about the the state of things right now, it's like, again, I would almost like think about this. Like, what are all the things that you relied on, like maybe 10 years ago, that you actually thought were still going to be around the next day? There's probably a pretty short list of things that are still the same, that are still consistent. So the anchors are starting to dissolve. And, in comes Uranus here to really point out an alternative path. And in your life, I don't want to just make this about society itself. It's like these are things that are actually going to affect your life as well. And so as we're talking about this conjunction, point out where's 18 degrees of Taurus in your birth chart, and actually where do you have 18 degrees, really 17 and 19 degrees of any planets in the fixed signs. So like for millennials, there's a certain group of millennials who have Pluto at 18 degrees Scorpio. So for them, this is pretty important. This is Uranus opposing their natal Pluto, which, could actually be amazing growth in like a financial situation, investments, or even awakenings out of their subconscious. So anyways, that's just one example. But, keep this in mind, because wherever 18 degrees of Taurus is in your chart, that's what's being activated, where you're activating this sort of sense of the need for, again, change, innovation, disrupting, and new forms of thought and new forms of thinking. Because Uranus is really here to help us, again, accelerate and make progress on these extremely stifling and stale structures, which are represented by Saturn. So we live in this Pluto Capricorn society right now, which, Capricorn, of course, is associated with Saturn. So when we talk about Pluto and Capricorn, it's like this is immense, top-heavy, powerful systems. It's been that way since 2008 especially. But now that Pluto is kind of reaching the last degrees of Capricorn, we're starting to realize that, these systems are sort of too top-heavy, right? So it's like they could collapse on their own weight. And I did a video about that on the Pluto return video last year, talking about this. And lo and behold, like this is all playing out. So, but with Mars and Uranus and the North Node conjunct, it's kind of like all of a sudden, individuals realizing again, suddenly that there's this clarity that's entered into their mind of like, I am feeling kind of frazzled right now. I am feeling like things are chaotic, but this is actually my time to kind of to detach from certain things, because that's what you have to do right now. You have to detach, because the more tightly you hold on, the more painful this time is going to be. So what exactly should you be detaching from? So this is the exercise that I think you should do. Think about your social identifications. So this is a Saturnian thought, but you have to kind of think about like, how are you defined in the society? So think about your employee of company X, you're the resident of this household, you're the so-and-so's partner, you're so-and-so's child, and so on and so on. You're a resident of this town. You would consider yourself a part of said subculture or culture. Like Saturn is identification and definition. It's like, how can you define yourself in a way that society can understand? It's like, okay, well, my name is Evan. I am a data analyst at company X. Like, okay, now I get it. Like Saturn is like, I need you to just give yourself a title. I need you to say like, I'm a computer scientist. I'm an investment banker. That's a very, like, Saturn is very satisfied with those types of answers. And so during this Pluto and Capricorn era, we've all kind of like gotten into line and like assembled ourselves in certain structures and orders so that everyone can understand who we are. It's like people don't, of course, actually know who we are for the most part, except for close friends. But like to the society, it's like, I know you as a data analyst. That makes me feel secure and comfortable. And so Saturn is like, good job, good job. But, increasingly these systems have made us feel very isolated and alienated from both ourselves and other people. Think about like Radiohead's album OK Computer. That was so prescient because it was like basically, that was 1997, but they were basically foreseeing this world in which, yes, it was partly about technology and the internet, but it's like they were foreseeing a world in which everyone's isolated from themselves. That's because we've put ourselves into these Saturnian boxes. So it's like you belong somewhere theoretically, but you only belong in this box. And you can't really get out, so it's all of a sudden it's like this, it's this prison. You think about, people who go off and they move to, and this is not a knock against anyone who lives in the suburbs, but it's like some people like go off, they get the house in the suburbs, they have a family, and they've convinced themselves that they're quite happy with it. But some people are not. Some people are born to be in that situation, and other people realize like 20 years into it that they were just kind of imitating others. That's the lower expression of Saturn, because Saturn makes us self-conscious, because we have to give ourselves an identity. Because most people can't process someone else if they're like giving them multiple answers. It's like, okay, are you a data analyst or are you an astrologer? Tell me. And I struggled with that for years. I spent 7 years in New York City working in like consulting, data analytics, market research. And it's like during that time, I kept telling people, well, I'm actually also a musician on the side. I moonlight as a musician. And it's like, okay, well, that's cool. But like, we'll just chalk that up to, you know, the edges of your personality, like some personality. And to me, it's like I was always a musician. But then when I moved to LA, you know, I decided by pure happenstance, essentially, like I just stumbled into astrology. And, you know, as I became more and more proficient at it, I was like, oh my God, I might actually be an astrologer. And then there was a decision point of like, do I acknowledge this or do I pretend like it didn't happen? Because I think some people in my shoes would have pretended like it didn't happen. Because a lot, you know, and I'm going somewhere with this, by the way, but like, if I hadn't actually listened to the signals, if I hadn't like paid attention to the signals that were coming in, I might still be at my desk. I might still be miserable. I might still hate my job. But, you know, I decided this is where Uranus comes in. I decided to let myself wake up. I decided to turn on the light. And once I did that, I jumped into a new timeline. And I learned all the fundamentals of astrology in about 4 months. I'm not exaggerating that. Within 4 months, I could read anyone's birth chart to a sufficient degree, to the point where it was useful. I'm not saying I was perfect yet. But when you accept the openings, when you see the openings and you chase them down, which is what Uranus is, you can move at light speed. And you can make so much change in your life in such a short amount of time that you actually start to achieve your dreams. The ceiling starts to raise, and you kind of look back and you're like, wow, that's kind of scary. Like, how was I able to survive in those conditions? I mean, it's obviously not like, I'm not saying that, you know, my survival was at stake, but it's a manner of speaking of saying like, well, how did my soul survive, right? Like, how was I feeding my soul at that time, day after day, at that desk? So anyways, fast forward to right now. Fast forward to right now, and I'm just gonna guess that, like, I don't know, I don't want to guess, but like there's probably a portion of you watching this who know exactly where you are in that. Like, everyone watching this knows exactly where they are, but there's probably a portion of you who are watching this and saying, yeah, I'm still stuck. There's another portion of you who are saying, I'm kind of in the middle, I'm starting to get unstuck. And then there's another portion, and this is probably the lowest proportion, of people saying, you know what, I'm like completely free. I have completely untethered myself from any societal expectations. Yes, I changed and I pivoted, and half my friends are confused and scratching their head, my family's confused, but I'm actually living out my authentic values and my authentic life. That happened for me. Okay, like, pivoting from what I was doing to astrology, like, I'm not going to pretend like that didn't confuse people. That confused a lot of people, you know, because this is something that happened fairly recently, you know, and so for a lot of people who decide that they're going to define you, you've already decided to define yourself a certain way. When you change that, it's bewildering, and it's actually quite terrifying for people, because people can't absorb the fact that their structure is starting to disassemble and dissolve, because that's what you're doing. When you tell someone that you flip the script, it's like they all of a sudden feel insecure because they're wondering if their perception of reality is accurate, or if they're missing a piece of knowledge that could have seen this coming. Because for them, it's a tragic moment in a lot of ways, because it's so unexpected. And so Uranus right now is pushing everyone into this territory of, okay, I might be making an unexpected change in my life. I might just flip the script. I might just swerve the other way. And I might, and I might realize that I have to do this, because again, the systems are stifling. So it's not a secret. Like, everyone watching this would agree with that. The systems are stifling. The systems are outdated. They don't work anymore. We can barely, our supply chain is essentially broken. The climate crisis is out of hand. Inflation is basically at escape velocity. You know, like there, the issues are stacked on each other so high that it's like, is there like a third way? Is there an alternative way? Can we innovate our way out of this? And so over the next week, like, you will see news about recession. You will see news about supply chain constraints. You will see news about shortages. You will see news about leaders of like companies and organizations or even countries stepping down. And, you know, that's all a reflection of this Uranian change. But in your life, you have to go through this exercise, like I said, of mapping out all the ways in which you are defined by society and prioritizing them. Because there's a portion of those things that you probably resent. Like maybe you appreciate the fact that you are so-and-so's partner. Perfectly fine. Maybe you appreciate the fact that you are the child of these parents. But I guarantee you there are a couple things that you're not that satisfied with. So when you're writing it down, it's like hypothetically, it's like, I'm a data analyst at this company. Does that feed your soul? I mean, for some of you it might, especially if you have a lot of sixth house placements. But I think for like a lot of people, they'd be like, I don't know, that's kind of just whatever, you know, like maybe I could be doing something more. You know, I used to play violin as a kid. Could I somehow work that back into my life? And so this is the time to reinvent and detach yourself from things that you're not satisfied with. And to accept that you might not be accepted and by the society for making that change, but embracing it. So this is like a radical liberation for people. It's like an admission of like, this is actually who I am. And so Uranus, being an outer planet, facilitates evolution. So the ideal here is that, again, you are untethering yourself and you're basically just getting rid of gravity. And you're actually accessing free will by levitating and flying up to a new dimension. Because that's the irony here. A lot of people think that astrology is just completely, you know, BS, and that the material world is what gives you access to like real hard results and you know, free form movement and thought and action. But the irony is that those people are only getting to Saturn in their birth chart. They're not getting any further. They're getting completely stuck. And that's not a free will system, again, because you're deciding you only have certain blocks that you can put yourself in. So in reality, if you really grill yourself on your life, you only have like 5 boxes that you can put yourself in. So it's actually, in my opinion, it's hilarious that people say, well, yeah, of course there's free will. I chose my career. It's like, well, if I look at your birth chart, you have a bias towards this career because of the way your parents raised you, which I can also see in the birth chart, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's not until you understand astrology that you can look at your birth chart and say, where is my Uranus placement? Where is my Neptune placement? Where is my Pluto? Where's my North Node? Because those are the domains and the aspects, the components of the chart in which you can escape. And again, get rid of gravity. Because Saturn is gravity. Saturn is that last planet saying, like, this is the limit. This is the limitation. Uranus just says, F that. I'm going to go and again rewrite the code. I'm gonna rewire this system so that it works for me. Like, in almost no universe does it really make sense for, if you actually look at my life, if I had a biography about myself and you read all the way up until I discovered astrology, you would say there is absolutely no chance that this person would become an astrologer. You know, like nothing in my background screams astrology. Absolutely not. But I had my Uranian moment. And it was activated by, in my chart, a Uranus-Moon opposition and Jupiter and Saturn on my North Node, December 2020. So again, you're all going to encounter things like this week. You're going to encounter things that are quite frustrating, chaotic, confusing, unpredictable. And it's up to you to stay in your lane or to accept the call for, you know, a new path. Right? So this is, again, about radical reinvention, radical, like, this is almost iconoclastic, right? Like, you're jumping ahead of your time. So this is an acceleration of sorts, and I think that a lot of people will be exiting and resigning from jobs they've had for 15, 20 years. Maybe some of you will do that after watching this video. And Again, I already talked about this, but leaders stepping down, and this could just be like a CEO, but like you'll see it in the news. And just people making that change. So if but I want to look at that chart though really quick. I want to address that chart. So what's happening there is the Mercury Saturn opposition. There's a Mercury Saturn opposition and a Pluto Venus opposition at the same time on that August 1st conjunction, which to me spells some type of announcement that's very unfortunate. Like it's just like news that's like quite damaging to the economy. And it could just be like a bunch of like little things, like this company couldn't fulfill a contract with this company or this country, therefore supply chains are screwed, or this ship can't get across because it's like the water, because of the drought. Those are the types of things that could happen. But it could also be about like new rules that are being issued, in reaction to, of course, everything that's going on health-wise right now. So there could be like new restrictions, that would prevent people from, that just will like not be able to juice the economy. So people might get freaked out. And so there's a I just see this announcement that causes a contraction in the economy. So that will not necessarily be a good thing. I'm not saying that this day or this week is necessarily positive at that altitude, but in your individual life, like I said, you are encountering, there's options all of a sudden. You have options, there are openings, there are new opportunities, and it's really all the momentum is with Uranus there and conjunct to the North Node. I want to assure you that these decisions are probably for the best, because the North Node is where you can dial up the volume, accumulate positive karma, and again, progress. So if you choose to side with Saturn right now when there's a provocation or a confrontation, then you're just going to stay stuck for a long time. Like, you have to think about this as like a brief window. And everyone's chart's different, right? Some people have Uranus transits that are like again, with me, I have a Scorpio stellium. So over the next like 5 years, Uranus is just sweeping across all my personal planets. And that's how I became an astrologer. That's how I did a quantum leap. And so for you, if you don't have Uranus doing anything to your chart right now with hard aspects, this is your window to make a quantum leap. So I really can't emphasize this week enough. This is why I'm doing a separate video on it. Because again, you can upcycle. I don't know if that's an actual word, but decided to start using it. But it's really an upcycle. You have to think about you're moving in cycles throughout your life. But ideally it's going up. You're ascending, you're enlightening, you're elevating. So that ascension is beginning now for everybody. And this is actually a precursor to the age of Aquarius, because Uranus is an Aquarian planet. So it's like, again, this collective bonding, this collective awareness, this collective consciousness that things are stagnant, that things need to change, that we have to almost manufacture, if we have to, and engineer an opening. There has to be a new opening. And it's just like realizing that humanity is this beautiful mosaic. It's this beautiful mosaic, and yes, it's made up of individuals, but collectively there's something of an evolution in consciousness going on that's kind of underway when we all hook in to the same system and same network. So right now it's like we're all coming online at the same time. And it's not in a way to erode our autonomy, because Uranus and Aquarius do not think about, it's like you're not necessarily sacrificing the individual. They're still very much an individual. It's just that we have common goals in this group. So, it is in Taurus though, so there's a sense of destabilization. So I don't want to paint this as like a purely liberating moment for you. Like, there are destabilizing things, which could be food shortages, could be supply chain issues. And because Taurus is inherently fixated on possessions, and Uranus is just breaking that up. So there's all kinds of cracks in the foundation. And then Mars, is not necessarily an easy planet. It can be quite intense and action-oriented. So at the very least, let's say nothing happens this week for you. Everything, I'm very confident that in the news, right, like the news is going to be very active. But if your life is not really, you're not confronting these things yet, I would urge you to, at the very least, do that exercise I talked about with social identifications. How do you identify? And what do you need to change? What do you not actually care about in that definition of yourself? But also, what are your value systems? Because in Taurus, those are your value systems. So it's like, even if you're not completely realigning everything, you should align on authentic value systems that don't cater to the powers that be, right? So it's like, I value inner wealth, not external wealth, whatever it is for you. Do that exercise as well, because at the very least, you'll be primed for accelerated change when the time comes. So I think there's something for everyone here. I didn't get to the Leo new moon, but the point with the Leo new moon is that it's happening right before this conjunction. So I almost think that this conjunction is just overpowering the Leo moon. But in Leo, we are talking about what we love to do, what brings out our inner joy, what originates in the heart. It's a human sign. So you do want to prioritize your own needs here, and I think that dovetails with what I already said. So the Leo new moon is basically saying, like, what career would keep me, what job would keep me in the honeymoon phase forever? You have to think about it that way, because if your job right now, especially again with Taurus and the 18th degree, especially being about Virgo and work, if your job's not fulfilling, this is the time. This is the time to make the change. Like, stop kidding yourself, because a lot of people lie. A lot of people lie to themselves for years. I did that. I was sitting at a desk in Manhattan for like 7 years. Okay, when I look back at that, I feel a certain amount of shame. And I think my Saturn and Capricorn was in the 7th house, was just playing its role at the time. It was winning. Saturn was winning in my chart. In my 6th house, Mercury was winning. But I had a 5th house Scorpio stellium that was not being fed, not being served. And that's where my energy center is. So, a lot of people will lie to themselves for a long time. And it's just like we get accustomed to the lie, and so we no longer understand how corrosive it is. So you have to stop lying to yourself. And it's like, again, if I'm being like perfectly candid, it's like, I don't know, maybe 80% of people, probably 80% of people do this, or are doing this right now. I don't know what the proportion is of viewers watching this video. Hopefully it's lower. I'm sure you guys are all, you're doing what I'm doing. We're all on this journey to elevate consciousness. But the vast majority of people are lying. They're saying, I want that house in the suburbs. I want that family. But it's like, no, you saw someone else doing that. So you just did that. But everyone has an authentic dream that maybe it was lost. Maybe it was lost a long time ago, when you started to mature, when someone told you couldn't do that anymore. But everyone has a dream that they can reclaim right now. Or even a door that just opens that you didn't expect. Again, it's like maybe someone breaks up with you, but like because of that you meet someone new who just puts you on this amazing path. Or you lose the job. Especially for Leo risings right now, Leo risings could really just be losing the job. Or anyone with Taurus in the 10th house. I don't know if I'd really want that transit. But if you have it, you'll figure it out. But this could be the door for a better job, more innovative, tech-centric job, or humanitarian job. And by the way, if you want to talk through any of these themes with me directly, get a one-on-one reading with me. I actually think maybe even the best way to navigate this is just to take my course. My course is going to be 5 classes that are actually very digestible. You can see the way I talk. I don't mince words. I'm going to be even more structured in these courses. These are presentations. These are webinars. So these are going to be full slides. I'm going to be sharing slides. I'm going to be walking you through astrology on my terms, in my terms. This is not something you can read about on the internet or in a book. Like, this is coming straight from the source. So I'm going to be giving you, I'm distilling all of my knowledge into 5 classes. And everyone else, and I'm sure there's astrologers watching this video who are like, there's no way that you can teach someone to read a birth chart in 5 60-minute classes. I'm going to prove that. I'm going to prove that wrong. I'm going to prove that I can do that. Because I'm very, very focused on this right now. And so, if you take these classes, you can tap into this Uranian energy much more quickly and save years of your life being stuck, right? Because I am keenly attuned to the energy of the outer planets at this point in my life. So if anything, and these courses are only $50 more, like the total price of the course is only $50 more than a birth chart reading for me. So there's really no reason not to sign up. But again, the link is in my bio. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much. I'll see you soon.